Welcome to the Professional's Guide for installing the HeatMatrix uncoupling membrane. HeatMatrix is a flexible, easy to install underlayment used to provide crack prevention for tile, waterproofing for the subfloor, and simple WarmWire installation. It may be used with SunTouch Accessory Products to provide radiant floor heating installers with a convenient single source option. Remember, this video is not a substitute for either the installation instructions provided with your purchase or the experience of a trained product installer. Refer to your WarmWire HeatMatrix installation guide for additional information and specific product warnings. Before we begin, let's first review which additional items you'll need for your installation. You'll need premium modified thinset mortar, as recommended by the tile or stone manufacturer. Several mortar manufacturers offer thinset that is specifically designed for such installations. One trowel, sized to match the tile manufacturer's recommendations. One utility knife. For installations in areas exposed to water, HeatMatrix joint tape is highly recommended. A light-colored oil pencil or marker, a regular pencil, and one reliable hand roller or grout float. Additional preparatory steps are recommended before you begin installing your WarmWire HeatMatrix. First, ensure that the substrate is flat, clean, dry, structurally sound, adequately load-bearing, and free of material that may prevent bonding of the tile adhesive. Next, roll out the HeatMatrix and trim to fit the length of the first row. Mark the boundary edge of the HeatMatrix as a guide for the thinset application. Set aside the cut length of HeatMatrix to allow the application of the thinset to the subfloor. With your notched trowel, carefully apply the mortar to the substrate. Cover the area up to the boundary of the first row. Depending upon the condition of the surface, the estimated coverage will be approximately 100 square feet for each 50-pound bag of thinset mortar. We're now ready to install the first row of HeatMatrix. When placing HeatMatrix, the anchoring fleece must be firmly embedded into the mortar. Using a float or flat trowel, carefully place the membrane into the adhesive. If HeatMatrix is placed over a drain, measure the location to the center of the opening before placing it in position. Once the section of HeatMatrix is installed, the distance to the opening may be marked and cut to accommodate the drain opening. Repeat the above steps for additional rows of HeatMatrix until the space is covered. Keep in mind that you must monitor the open time of the adhesive. Now that the membrane has been installed, the next step is to install your WarmWire heating cable. WarmWire is offered in a wide variety of coverage options for rooms, both large and small. When selecting the proper length, remember that the WarmWire cannot be cut shorter. Create a sketch of your installation to note the fixture and thermostat location. WarmWire must never be installed under fixtures or cabinets. It must be set back from room parameters by 3 inches and toilet flanges by 6 inches. Heating vents, plumbing pipe, and other items require consideration as well. For complete details, please refer to the WarmWire installation manual. The first step to installing the heating cable is to feed the WarmWire power lead and floor sensor wire into the electrical box where the thermostat will be installed. Refer to the WarmWire and thermostat manual for additional details. A black splice connects the power lead to the heating wire and is positioned close to the wall's entry point to allow the power lead to reach the electrical box. Trim a small rectangle out of the HeatMatrix membrane to allow the splice to sit flush against or below the HeatMatrix surface. Secure the splice in the space provided with thinset. Place the floor sensor in the area to be heated. Plan a location for the floor sensor that will keep the sensor wire from crossing over the heating cable wire. Begin installing WarmWire in the grooves provided by the membrane, moving away from the power lead position. A hand roller or grout float may be used for this step. For common 3-inch spacing, the wire loops around 3 shapes, then doubles back to the next row. WarmWire may be installed at an alternating 2 and 3 stud spacing for areas with greater heat loss, such as in front of windows and doors. For areas with minimal heat loss, you may alternate the wire spacing between 3 and 4 shapes to reduce the heat output. Remember that heating cables must never cross one another. This will result in dangerous overheating. Continue installing WarmWire until all the wire is properly in place. Do not cut the heating wire if some remains after covering the space. Adjust the layout to use up the extra length, or route the wire into areas around the HeatMatrix perimeter if necessary. Do not cross heating wires or allow them to come within one shape of each other. For areas frequently exposed to surface water, seal the seams between the rows of HeatMatrix with joint tape, providing added protection to the subfloor. To install joint tape, cover the seam between the HeatMatrix sections with thinset at a width that is slightly greater than the joint tape. Apply the joint tape to cover over the thinset, sealing the seam. Joint tape may also be used where the floor edges meet the waterproofing membranes on the wall. You can begin installing tile once the WarmWire has been tested. Protect the assembly from mechanical load if the tile will not be immediately installed. When choosing a thin set for your tile installation, make sure it meets the recommendations for your tile type, as well as being suitable for use over uncoupling membranes. Begin by applying thinset to the membrane with the flat side of a trowel. Use the notched side of the trowel to skim over the thinset, bringing the height of the thinset above the membrane surface. The notched size of the trowel should meet the recommendations for the size and type of the tile being installed. The heating cables and membrane must be completely covered in thinset before placing tile. Take particular caution not to damage the heating cables. A SunTouch plastic cable trowel may be selected for added peace of mind. Note that the tile grout lines are not required to be aligned with the joints of the membrane. Refer to the tile manufacturer's specifications for assessing the open and curing times of the thinset. Grout may be applied after the manufacturer's recommended curing time for the thinset mortar. Once the tiles have been installed, you are finished. Wait for the mortar to be fully cured before operating the heating system. Heat applied too soon may interfere with the proper hardening of the thinset mortar material. For additional technical support, please visit suntouch.com.